Here we want to evaluate the integral using integration by parts. We have the integral of t times the sine of 2t times dt. So the first thing is we have to identify what we're going to let u equal. So we're going to let u equal t, and dv is going to equal the sine of 2t dt. Now for the first part, we're going to take the derivative of both sides, so we're going to end up with du, and the derivative of t is going to be 1 dt. And then over here, we want to take the antiderivative of the sine of 2t. So how do we take the antiderivative of the sine of 2t? Well, let's go ahead and do that. So the sine of 2t dt. So we would let u equal 2t. We take the derivative of both sides, so we would have 2 dt. And since we want to substitute for dt, we have to divide both sides by 2. So 1/2 du is going to equal dt. And now we can go ahead with our substitution. So we have the sine of u times 1/2 du. We factor out the 1/2. And now we want to take the antiderivative of the sine of u du. And so the antiderivative of the sine of u is going to be negative cosine of u, and that would be plus c. So that would be negative 1/2 times the cosine of u, which is 2t, plus c, but we're just going to use this part for v. So v is going to equal negative 1/2 times the cosine of 2t. Okay, now we're going to write our original question. So we have the integral of t times the sine of 2t dt. So we know the formula for the integration by parts is u times v minus v du. So we know that u is t, and we know that v is negative 1/2 times the cosine of 2t, minus v, which is negative 1/2 times the cosine of 2t, times du, which is dt. So we get negative 1/2 of t times the cosine of 2t. We did distribute or factor out the negative 1/2, so the negative times the minus is going to be plus 1/2. And then we have times the integral of the cosine of 2t dt. Okay, so now we want to take the antiderivative of the cosine of cosine of 2t dt. So that means we're going to let u again equal 2t, du is equal to 2 dt, and 1/2 du is going to equal dt. So we're going to go ahead and then rewrite this. So we have the cosine of u times 1/2 du. So we factor out the 1/2, and then we have the cosine of u du. And then what's the antiderivative of the cosine of u? Well, that's sine of u plus c. And so that is 1/2 the sine of 2t plus c. So over here now we get negative 1/2 times t times the cosine of 2t plus 1/2 times 1/2 times the sine of 2t plus c. And so therefore now we're going to go ahead and finish our multiplication. So we have negative 1/2 times t times the cosine of 2t plus 1/4 times the sine of 2t plus c. And therefore there is our result.